Welcome to Session 3. This session will focus on creating the district plan and discussing the importance of developing and implementing collaborative structures throughout the district or community school. In today's session, we will review the role that supporting implementation plays throughout the organization, understand the importance of developing and implementing collaborative structures, and focus on a deeper understanding of the Ohio improvement process. In Session 2, we provided an overview of the Ohio improvement process, and we talked about the importance of completing the needs assessment to determine root causes, which is step 1 in the Ohio improvement process. We shared various protocols and inventories to go through the needs assessment and root causes. We also discussed the beginning steps of developing a district or community school plan.
Now you know where we've been. Let's review the role that supporting implementation plays as you focus on improving student performance throughout the organization. As a reminder, at the center of the OIP graphic is supporting implementation. It plays a significant role throughout the process. Supporting implementation through the Ohio improvement process lays the foundation for sustainable change. Supporting implementation consists of setting up the collaborative teams and processes that districts and schools need to identify, research, plan, implement, monitor, and examine their improvement efforts. It also includes the communication and engagement, decision-making, and resource management that thread throughout the process. Supporting implementation of each OIP step consists of establishing and aligning core beliefs of the district and schools, setting up collaborative implementation teams, and identifying members and responsibilities of the district leadership team, building leadership team or community leadership team, and teacher-based teams, which include shared leadership, communication and engagement, and purposeful decision-making. Successful outcomes occur when leaders ensure there is effective innovation, full implementation, and a supportive climate. Without these, successful outcomes are unlikely. This slide should look familiar to you as we shared this graphic in our previous webinar. Supporting implementation is at the foundation of all successful outcomes. Leaders ensuring effective innovation, full implementation, and a supportive climate are imperative in this work. As you may remember in our previous webinar, we talked about the importance of establishing and aligning core beliefs with the development and/or refinement of the district's mission, vision, and core beliefs. Today, we will focus on the importance of developing collaborative structures, identifying members, and defining responsibilities of those teams.
Let's quickly review establishing and aligning core beliefs. Districts must develop and implement continuous improvement processes aligned with the vision, mission, and core beliefs of the district and its schools. Vision is what you aspire to become, mission is what you do, and core beliefs are the principles that support your vision. District or community schools that are focused on improving student outcomes have collaborative teaming structures in place at all levels of the system. The 3 collaborative structures utilized in the Ohio improvement process are the district leadership team, building leadership teams or community school leadership teams, and teacher-based teams. Districts must develop and implement continuous improvement processes aligned with the vision, mission, and core beliefs of the district and its schools. Why are collaborative team structures necessary? Well, they allow a district to shift focus from single individuals to teams that can function as purposeful communities, distribute key leadership functions. They align work system-wide while focusing on a limited number of data-based district goals, and ensure effective leadership is exercised at all levels of the system.
Now you know the various teaming structures that need to be in place. Let's discuss the membership of these teams. Collaborative teams are essential for shared leadership and effective communication. District, building, or community schools, and teacher-based teams share responsibility for improving student achievement as part of a system-wide focus. Here are some questions to consider. Do you currently have these teaming structures in place in your district or community school? If not, what steps do you need to take to create these teams? If you've been utilizing teaming structures, how well do your teams share leadership, effectively communicate, share responsibility for improving student achievement, and is it a system-wide focus? You may wish to pause the webinar now to discuss these questions. In thinking about system-wide structures, here's an overview of the stakeholders that you may want to consider to be members of the various teams. On the next 3 slides, we will take a closer look at each of these teams. If teaming structures are new to your district or community schools, the following members may be represented on your district leadership team: superintendent, treasurer, school board representatives, school administrators, teachers, central office administrators, family and community members, union representatives, school counselors, and community partners. This list is just a suggestion. You may find that you need additional or alternative representation from various subgroups. For example, someone that represents the voice of your students with disabilities, such as an intervention specialist. Perhaps your district needs to focus on improving the performance of your gifted students, who might be able to provide insight at the district level to ensure that those students are being considered. It is imperative to know the student demographics of your district and include representatives that understand the specific needs of the students that they serve. After considering the members of your district leadership team, each building principal needs to consider the participants of the building leadership team. The BLT also draws from multiple areas at the building level and may include principal and school administrators, teachers serving across specialties and grade levels, such as academic coaches, general education teachers, and intervention specialists, non-certified staff, counseling and support service providers, family and community members. Again, this is just a guideline. The building leadership team is at the middle of the collaborative structure and receives information and support from the district leadership team. We talked about the members of the DLT and BLT. Let's consider the members of your teacher-based teams, which include building level staff grouped by grades and content areas and may include general education subject area teachers, intervention specialists, related services specialists, related arts teachers, instructional coaches, and paraprofessionals. As you determine the members of your teacher-based teams, you may wish to consider the best placement for your intervention specialists, your reading specialists, or coaches. Are there specific teams that would benefit from working with these specialists? So now it's your opportunity to reflect on the following questions. If you are viewing this webinar with a team, we suggest that you pause the webinar and discuss the questions on this slide.
Now that we have discussed the various teaming structures in the Ohio Improvement Process, let's dig into the roles and responsibilities of each of these teams. All teams have specific roles and responsibilities, which include shared leadership, communication and engagement, purposeful decision-making, and some teams may discuss various aspects of resource management. As we look at these 4 areas, shared leadership would suggest that continuous improvement is everyone's responsibility. Communication and engagement focuses on two-way communication and feedback loops to all stakeholders. Purposeful decision-making involves analyzing adult and student data. And resource management would center around aligning resources to district and building level plans. At this point, pause the webinar and take a few minutes to analyze the roles of each team. Are there some commonalities among some of the teams? And what are some of the differences that you notice? Now that you have discussed some of the similarities and differences among the teams, let's take a closer look at the roles of these various teams. The District Leadership Team, or DLT, is responsible for reviewing the district's data, developing the district's improvement plan, which includes goals and strategies, ensuring the provision of professional development and other supports, monitoring implementation and effectiveness of the strategies, and communicating the improvement work of the district. The Building Leadership Team, or Community School Leadership Team, is responsible for reviewing the building's data, developing the building's improvement plan, which again aligns to the district's plan, supporting teacher-based teams, assessing and monitoring the ongoing progress of students, quality of instruction and effectiveness of teacher-based teams, and communicating information up to the DLT and then back down to the TBTs. The teacher-based teams are responsible for reviewing the grade level or team data, using the Ohio improvement process to ensure learners and learning are accelerated on a continuous basis, studying and selecting instructional strategies to meet the identified needs of learners, and monitoring the student learning and the impact of the adult actions on student learning. Now that you're aware of the roles and responsibilities of each team, let's consider three important components for effective meetings. Teams benefit from using agendas, which identify the topics for discussion, help to keep the participants focused, increase productivity, and provide documentation for your team meetings throughout the year. Many highly effective teams have clearly established norms which help build team discipline and trust between team members and support a safe collaborative environment. A few examples of norms might include start on time, end on time, presume positive intent, come to the meeting prepared to collaborate, and manage electronic devices. Select norms that will provide structure that allow your team to function productively. A final consideration is assigning roles for team members. These roles focus the duties of team members to ensure a productive meeting, which in turn will increase team effectiveness and cohesion and provide needed structure for your team. A few examples of roles that you may wish to consider might include facilitator, timekeeper, recorder, and process observer. Assigning roles and implementing roles will allow meetings to run more efficiently.
If you remember, in our previous webinars, we discussed in depth how to identify critical needs. If this is your first webinar and you would like more information on identifying critical needs, you may wish to review our webinar titled New Internal Facilitators Session 2. Remember, this is your first step as you work through the Ohio improvement process. As you may remember, there are various types of data to consider, and the types of data reviewed and analyzed will be different based upon the team level. The data that you consider for the DLT, BLT, and TBTs may be very different. At the district level, you will focus on district or big picture data. At the building level, you will be identifying building needs that will improve student outcomes. And at the teacher team level, you will look at student performance data and the correlation between the adult actions that directly impact student performance in your grade level and in the classroom. Step 2 of the Ohio improvement process is researching and selecting evidence-based strategies. After determining your critical needs, your team will research strategies that will directly align to addressing your identified areas of concern. As a reminder, the evidence-based strategies should address the prioritized critical needs. Your DLT, BLT, and TBT should consider current research, S's level of evidence, and select strategies that ensure alignment throughout the organization.
Let's move on to step 3, which is plan for implementation. Planning for implementation is an important part of the process, as you will not accomplish your goals without a plan on how to achieve them. Here is what you will need to consider as you develop your plan. Is your plan aligned to critical needs? Additional questions your team will need to address include: have you selected a limited number of SMART goals? What evidence-based strategies are you considering to help you achieve your goals? How will you progress monitor the implementation to ensure student success? And lastly, what action steps are required of the team to ensure successful outcomes for students? Here are some questions to consider as you look more closely at progress monitoring and action steps. For progress monitoring, how will you progress monitor the implementation to ensure student success? What would success look like at each level? What specific adult actions will be monitored, and how will the plan be monitored? Who will be responsible for monitoring? What is the timeline for monitoring, and when will the monitoring occur? For action steps, you might want to consider what action steps are required of the team to ensure successful outcomes for students. Is the plan being implemented with fidelity? What specific steps or adult actions in the strategy will we all implement? And what professional learning needs have we identified that we need to address? Step 4 of the Ohio improvement process is implement and monitor. Implementation requires changes in adult behaviors and practices. Implementation is the main focus of the district leadership team, or DLT, building leadership team, which is BLT, community school teams, maybe known as CSLTs, and teacher-based teams, which are TBTs. Monitoring is collaborative learning through observing implementation of adult practices and their impact on student outcomes. As you are implementing and monitoring, here are a few questions to consider. How do we inform our implementation efforts? How do we monitor adult and student indicators to measure progress of selected strategies? If the strategy is not having the intended impact, what corrections are needed? Each level in the collaborative structure will need to ensure that implementation and monitoring occurs for both adult practices as well as student impact.
Step 5 in the Ohio improvement process is examine, reflect, and adjust. Having the ability as a team to answer the questions of what is working and why, and what is not working and why, is profoundly important to the team's ability to make sustainable progress. The defining difference is whether the adults take personal responsibility for student achievement and make intentional changes based upon the needs, strategies, plan, and implementation. Here are some considerations for your teams. Teams should ask, where did we start? Where are we now? And where do we go next? Teams examine and reflect on goal achievement, implementation, and communication. And teams adjust by identifying next steps. Thorough implementation occurs when the set of actions and strategies are implemented as designed with accuracy and consistency. When examining implementation, consider the following questions. Are strategies being implemented as intended? Are critical actions or tasks missing? Are all buildings consistently implementing the action steps? When evaluating and reflecting on implementation, you may wish to discuss: why was implementation fully, partially, or not successful? Has the strategy had enough time or support for implementation to have an impact? Are the actions occurring as planned? For example, are timelines being met and are resources available and in use? Was the strategy the correct strategy to reach the goal? And what can the organization do moving forward to ensure intended implementation?
As we wrap up, in your district or community school, you have reviewed, revisited, and revised your mission, vision, and core beliefs. You may have started developing your district or community school's action plan. Your next steps may include setting up the collaborative implementation teams throughout your organization and determining the timeline for establishing your teams. This would include identifying roles and shared responsibilities at each level of the system, the DLT, BLT, or CSLT, and TBTs. Thank you for listening, and please remember all information is subject to change as per ODE's updates. Join us for our next session on January 30th at the Summit ESC, where we will discuss updated information regarding the Ohio Improvement Process. Registration is available on the SST website at www.sst8.org.